The riverbank. The mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home. First with brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash, till he had dust in his throat and eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur, and an aching back and weary arms. Spring was moving in the air above and in the earth below and around him, penetrating even his dark and lowly little house with its spirit of divine discontent and longing. It was small wonder, then, that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor, said, "Bother," and "Oh, blow," and also, "Ang spring cleaning," and bolted out of the house without even waiting to put on his coat. Something up above was calling him imperiously, and he made for the steep little tunnel which answered, in his case, to the gavelled carriage drive owned by animals whose residences are nearer to the sun and air. So he scraped and scratched and scrabbled and scrooged, and then he scrooged again and scrabbled and scratched and scraped, working busily with his little paws and muttering to himself, up we go, till at last, pop, his snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm grass of a great meadow. "This is fine," he said to himself. "This is better than whitewashing." The sunshine struck hot on his fur. Soft breezes caressed his heated brow, and after the seclusion of the cellarage he had lived in so long, the carol of happy birds fell on his dulled hearing almost like a shout. Jumping off all his four legs at once in the joy of living and the delight of spring without its cleaning, he pursued his way across the meadow till he reached the hedge on the further side. "Hold up," said an elderly rabbit in the gap. "Sixpence for the privilege of passing by the private road." He was bowled over in an instant by an impatient and contemptuous mole, who trotted along the side of the hedge, chaffing the other rabbits as they peeped hurriedly from their holes to see what the row was about. Onion sauce," he remarked jeeringly, and was gone before they could think of a thoroughly satisfactory reply. Then they all started grumbling at each other. "How stupid they are! Why didn't you tell him? Why didn't you say? You might have reminded him," and so on, and in the usual way. But, of course, it was then much too late, as is always the case. It all seemed too good to be true. Hither and thither, through the meadows, he rambled busily, along the hedgerows, across the copses, finding everywhere birds building, flowers budding, leaves thrusting, everything happy and progressive and occupied. And instead of having an uneasy conscience pricking him and whispering whitewash, he somehow could only feel how jolly it was to be the one idle dog among all these busy citizens. After all, the best part of a holiday is perhaps not so much to be resting yourself as to see all the other fellows busy working. He thought his happiness was complete when, as he meandered aimlessly along, suddenly he stood at the edge of a full-fed river. Never in his life had he seen a river before, this sleek, sinuous, full-bodied animal, chasing and chuckling, gripping things with a gurgle, and leaving them with a laugh, to fling itself on fresh playmates that shook themselves free and were caught and held again. All was a shake and a shiver, glints and gleams and sparkles, rustles and swirls, chatter and bubble. The mole was bewitched, entranced, fascinated. By the side of the river he trotted as one trots, when very small, by the side of a man who holds one spellbound by exciting stories. And when tired at last, he sat on the bank, while the river still chattered on to him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world, sent from the heart of the earth to be told at last to the insatiable sea. As he sat on the grass, looked across the river, a dark hole in the bank opposite, just above the water's edge, caught his eye, and dreamily he fell to considering what a nice, snug dwelling place it all would seem for an animal with few wants and fond of a bijou riverside residence, above flood level and remote from noise and dust. As he gazed, something bright and small seemed to twinkle down in the heart of it, vanished, then twinkled once more like a tiny star, but it could hardly be a star in which an unlikely situation. But it was too glittering and small for a glowworm. Then as he looked, it winked at him, and so declared itself to be an eye, and a small face began gradually to grow up round it, like a frame round a picture. A brown little face, with whiskers. A grave, round face, with the same twinkle in its eye that had at first attracted his notice. Small, neat ears, and thick, silky hair. It was the water rat. Then two animals stood and regarded each other cautiously. "Hullo, mate," said the water rat. "Hullo, rat," said the mole. "Would you like to come over?" inquired the rat. "Oh, it's all very well to talk," said the mole, rather pettishly, he being new to a river and riverside life and its ways. The rat said nothing, but stooped and unfastened a rope and hauled on it, then lightly stepped into a little boat which the mole had not observed. It was painted blue outside and white within, and was just the size for two animals, and the mole's whole heart went out at once to it, even though he did not yet fully understand its uses. The rat sculled smartly across and made fast. Then he held up his forepaw as the mole stepped gingerly down. "Lean on that," he said. "Now then, step lively." And the mole, to his surprise and rapture, found himself actually seated in the stern of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," he said, and the rat shoved off, took to the skulls-again. "Do you know, I've never been in a boat before in all my life." "What?" cried the rat, open-mouthed. "Never been in it? You never... Well, what have you been doing then?" "Is it so nice as all that?" asked the mole shyly, though he was quite prepared to believe it as he leant back in his seat and surveyed the cushions, the oars, the row-blocks, and all the fascinating fittings, and felt the boat sway lightly under him. "Nice, it's the only thing," said the water rat solemnly, as he leant forward for his stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily. "Messing about in boats. Messing." "Look ahead, rat," cried the mole suddenly. It was too late. The boat struck the bank full tilt. The dreamer, the joyous oarsman, lay on his back at the bottom of the boat, his heels in the air. "About and boats, oh, with boats," the rat went on composedly, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In or out of 'em, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems really to matter. That's the charm of it. Whether you get away or whether you don't, whether you arrive at your destination or whether you reach somewhere else, or whether you never get anywhere at all, you're always busy and you never do anything in particular, and when you've done it, there's always something else to do, and you can do it if you like, but you'd better much not. Look here, if you've really got nothing else on this morning, supposing we drop down the river together and have a long day of it." The mole waggled his toes from sheer happiness, spread his chest with a sigh of full contentment, and leaned back blissfully into a soft cushion. "What a day I'm having," he said. "Let us start at once." "Hold on a minute," said the rat. He looped the painter, threw a ring in his landing stage, climbed up into his hole above, and after a short interval reappeared staggering under a fat wicker luncheon basket. "Shove that under your feet," he observed to the mole, as he passed it down into the boat. Then he untied the painter and took the sculls again. "What's inside it?" asked the Mole, wriggling with curiosity. There's cold chicken in it, replied the Rat briefly. Cold tongue ham beef, pickle, nutty acid, sandwiches, pickle meat, ginger, beer, bottled soda water. Oh, stop, cried the Mole in ecstasies. This is too much. Do you really think so? Inquired the Rat, seriously. It's only what I always take on these little excursions, and the other little animals always are telling me that I mean a beast and cut it very fine. The Mole never heard a word as he was saying, absorbed in the new life he was entering upon, intoxicated with the sparkle, the ripple, the scents, and the sounds, and the sunlight. He trailed a paw in the water and dreamed long, waking dreams. The Winter Rat, like the good fellow he was, sculled steadily on and forbore to disturb him. I like your clothes awfully, old chap, he remarked after some half an hour or so had passed. I'm going to get black velvet smoking suit myself some day, as soon as I can afford it. I beg your pardon, said the Mole, pulling himself together with an effort. You must think me very rude, but this is all very new to me. So this is a river, the river, corrected the Rat. And you really live by the river? What a jolly life. By and it was with it, and on and in it, said the Rat. Its brother and sister to me, and aunts and company, and food and drink, and naturally, washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other. What it hasn't got is not worth having, and what it doesn't know is not worth knowing. Lord, the times we've spent together, whether in winter or summer, spring or autumn, it's always got its fun and its excitements. When the floods are on in February, and my cellars and basements brimming with drink that's no good to me, and the brown water runs by my best bedroom window, or again when it all drops away, and shows patches of mud that smells like plum cake, and the rushes and weed clog to the channels, and I potter about dry shod most of the bed, and find fresh food to eat, and things careless people have dropped out of boats. But isn't it a bit dull at times? The Mole ventured to ask. Just you and the river, and no one else to pass a word with? No one else to... Well, I mustn't be hard on you, said the Rat with a forbearance. You're new to it, and of course you don't know. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away together. No, it isn't what it used to be at all. Otters, kingfishers, dabchicks, moorhens, all of them all day and always wanting you to do something, as if a fellow had no business of his own to attend to. What lies over there? Asked the Mole, waving a paw towards a background and woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on one side of the river. That? Oh, that's just the wild wood, said the Rat shortly. We don't go there very much, we river bankers. Aren't they nice people in there? Said the Mole, a trifle nervously. Well, replied the Rat, let me see. The squirrels are all right, and the rabbits, some of them, but rabbits are a mixed lot. And then there's Badger, of course. He lives right in the heart of it. Wouldn't live anywhere else, either, if you paid him to do it, dear old Badger. Nobody interferes with him. They better not, he added significantly. Why, you should interfere with him, asked the Mole. Well, of course they're others, explained the Rat in a hesitating sort of way. Weasels and stoats and foxes and so on. They're all right in a way. I'm very good friends with them. I'm very good friends with them. Pass the time of day with them and meet and all that, but the break up sometimes, there's no denying it, and then, well, you can't really trust them, and that's the fact. The Mole knew very well that it is quite against animal etiquette to dwell on possible trouble ahead or even to allude to it, so he dropped the subject. And beyond the wild wood again, he asked, where's it all blue and dim, and one sees what he heels up, or perhaps they mayn't, and something like smoke of towns, or is it only cloud drift? Beyond the wild wood comes the wild world, said the rat. "And that's something that doesn't matter, either to you or to me. I've never been there, and I'm never going, nor you either. If you've got any sense at all, don't ever refer to it again, please. Now then, here's our backwater, at last, where we're going to lunch." Leaving the main stream, now they passed into what seemed at first sight like a little landlocked lake. Green turf sloped down to either edge, brown, snaky tree roots gleamed below the surface of the quiet water, while ahead of them the silvery shoulder and foamy tumble of a weir, arm in arm with a restless, dripping mill wheel that held up in its turn a gray-gabled mill house, filled the air with a soothing murmur of sound, dull and smothery, yet with little clear voices speaking up cheerfully out at intervals. It was so very beautiful that the mole could only hold up his forepaws and gasp, "Oh my, oh my, oh my." The rat brought the boat alongside the bank, made her fast, helped the still awkward mole safely ashore, and swung out the luncheon basket. The mole begged as a favor to be allowed to unpack it all by himself, and the rat was very pleased to indulge him and to sprawl at full length on the grass, and to rest while his excited friend shook out the tablecloth and spread it, took out all the mysterious packets one by one, and arranged their contents in due order, still gasping, "Oh my," at each fresh revelation. When all was ready, the rat said, "Now pitch in, old fellow." And the mole was indeed very glad to obey, for he had started his spring cleaning at a very early hour that morning, as people will do, and had not paused for bite or sup, and